Getting everything set up. I got all of the channels going on all my networks: Rumble, X, Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. Right now, I have to go into YouTube because I forgot that I needed to change the information in the video so that the category, well, not the category, but the playlist is mentioned and where it needs to go and stuff like that. So I almost had everything perfect and ready to go on all of it except for that one thing. So let me go in there and straighten it out. Okay. And then after I do that, I should be ready to go. I can do a quick audio test too while I'm doing it. Yeah, plus I'm gonna put my thumbnail on it while I'm at it too. It would be a good chance to get that taken care of instead of forgetting about it. So this is another episode of the Cosmic Weave, and I'll do my reading, and this is going to be the second to the last one I'm going to be doing on this. Usually, I always try to do a last episode where I review everything, but there's one more episode that I'm really wanting to take and put on here, so I'm gonna do that one. Sounds good on YouTube. Let me come in and check Rumble. I always have to check Rumble. It's crazy that this is the actual platform that it's on, and it's always the one that causes me the most problems when it comes to the stream kicking in. So let me see what's going on there. Oh, okay, so it sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna do my imaginary, or not my imaginary. I'm gonna do my countdown and get right into the show. I do the countdown because it's for editing purposes. So if it's annoying to you guys, I apologize, but it's something that I gotta do. Take a good drink of my coffee and get to work. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Weave here on the wonderful world of weirdness. I'm Roger Hanson, and I'll be your host. And today we are going to get in. Well, the last time we talked, I talked a little bit about the scientific approach to the cosmic wave, and this is where I start getting more into it, more deeper down into the subject when it comes to the other aspects, because right now is the second to the last episode that I have for the season of this conscious weave topic that I'm doing. And I want to get into the fourth part of the cosmic the cosmic beginnings, and kind of go over that some more. So this one isn't going to be as much concerning like the ancient beliefs and stuff of that nature. It's going to be more of a straight up discussion on what's going on here with this. So with that being said, let me go ahead and get started with the reading. So here we go. Now, when we're referring to the vast repeating cycles that shape the birth, development, decline, and rebirth of the universe itself, This touches upon one of the most enduring metaphysical and philosophical themes found across many world traditions and cosmologies. These cycles are not linear but circular in nature, meaning that the universe does not follow a singular beginning to end trajectory. Instead, existence unfolds through a series of recurring cosmic phases, each phase leading naturally into the next, echoing through vast stretches of time and representing a continuous regeneration of all that is. The idea of a cosmic cycle begins with creation, a moment in which the universe emerges from a primordial state of chaos or manifests or unmanifest potential. Now, this phase is often represented by imagery such as the rising of light from darkness, the division of heavens from the earth, or the breathing of life into inert matter. In this phase, order is introduced, often through a divine or natural intelligence, which sets into motion the laws and principles by which existence is governed. Time begins, space is defined, and the elements are arranged into a structured cosmos. Following creation comes the development phase. During this time, the universe is active and expansive. Stars are born, galaxies form, life emerges, and consciousness begins to unfold and evolve. This stage mirrors growth and flourishing, both cosmically and biologically. Civilizations arise, wisdom traditions are founded, and beings ascend through cycles of learning, development, and spiritual refinement. This is the golden age of a cosmic cycle where only the beauty, where order and beauty reflect the intentions of the original creative impulse. Yet, inherent within this plane of growth is the seed of entropy. As time moves forward, systems begin to decay. Structures that were once fresh and vital begin to decline, and a period of degeneration or dissolution gradually sets in. In this phase, fragmentation begins to replace cohesion. Harmony gives way to chaos. Light yields to shadow, and civilizations that once stood tall begin to fall. This is not necessarily a punishment or a tragedy, but rather a natural and necessary stage in the cycle, much like the autumn that precedes winter. The decline phase is often associated with a forgetting of origins, the loss of spiritual insight, and the turning away from the sacred patterns that once held things together. Eventually, the cycle reaches a point of collapse or death, a cosmic dissolution in which all things return to their elemental, unformed state. This phase is symbolized by darkness, silence, and stillness. It may come through catastrophe, cosmic contraction, or simply the exhaustion of all active forces. In some traditions, this stage is seen as a great sleep, a return to the void, or a merging back into the primordial waters of non-being. However, this is not the end, but the gateway to renewal. From this stage of dissolution, the potential of rebirth begins again. The cycle resets, and a new creation emerges out of the ashes of the old. Just as the seed must die to produce a new life, the universe regenerates through this rhythmic breath in and out of existence. This return to the beginning is not a repetition in the exact sense, but rather a spiritual each cycle echoing previous ones. Wait, hold up, I need to. This return to the beginning is not a repetition in the exact sense, but rather a spiral, each cycle echoing previous ones, but with variation and evolution. Time loops, but it also deepens, and existence becomes layered with memory, and wisdom carries over from previous turns of the wheel. Many cultures have expressed this vision of cosmic recurrence. In ancient Indian thought, time is divided into great ages called yugas, which move in a grand cycle from spiritual purity to darkness and back again. In classic Greek philosophy, the Stoics believed in the concept of ekpyrosis. Ekpyrosis. I hate Greek words. Ekpyrosis, where the universe is periodically consumed by fire and reborn. In Norse mythology, the world ends in Ragnarok, only to be recreated in a renewed and purified form. In Egyptian thought, the sun god Ra was said to travel through the underworld each night and be reborn at dawn, symbolizing the eternal return of light and life. These narratives reflect a shared intuition that the cosmos itself is alive, subject to rhythms and seasons, just like nature, and that no ending is final. Such cycles also reflect inwardly within the individual and collective human experience. Birth, growth, decline, death, and rebirth are not only cosmic realities, but human ones. They manifest in personal transformation, in the rise and fall of empires, and in the revolutions of thought and consciousness that shape history. The idea of repeating cycles helps to frame suffering not as meaningless, but as a necessary transition toward greater wholeness. It also instills hope, for just as every dusk gives way to dawn, so too does every descent hold within it the possibility of resurrection. Undifferentiated potential refers to a primordial state of existence in which all things are possible, but nothing has yet taken form. It is the condition of absolute openness before any division, definition, or expression has occurred. This concept appears in many cosmological, metaphysical, and philosophical traditions as the raw, unshaped ground from which all reality emerges. It is not merely the absence of structure, but rather the fullness of possibility. a fertile void where every future form, idea, or being resides in latent unity. In many ancient mythologies and philosophical systems, the beginning of the universe is described not as a sudden act of nothing, but as the emergence of order and form from an existing, boundless state of undifferentiated potential. In Indian thought, this is often portrayed as the cosmic waters or the primal soundless silence before the first vibration of creation. In Greek philosophy, it was understood as chaos, not in the modern sense of disorder, but as a formless, unbounded presence from which cosmos, meaning order and structure, eventually arises. The primal condition is not limited to mythical or cosmological narratives. It also represents a principle of creation found in nature, mind, and consciousness. For instance, before a thought forms in the mind, it exists in a state of undifferentiated awareness. Before a seed becomes a tree, it holds within it the unrealized possibility of many forms and outcomes, shaped only when it interacts with soil, water, time, and light. In this way, undifferentiated potential serves as a womb of creation, where things are not yet born into separate identity, but rather held in a state of unity. This state is also essential in understanding transformation. Whenever something undergoes deep change, but be it a person, a society, or the cosmos itself, it often passes through a phase where old forms dissolve and new ones have not yet emerged. This transition phase feels like uncertainty or chaos, but it is actually a return to undifferentiated potential. From this openness, something new and more refined can emerge. It is both a return and a beginning, a descent into the ground of being and a rising into new form. In mystical traditions, this concept is deeply spiritual. Undifferentiated potential is often equated with the divine itself, the absolute, the source, the origin that transcends all distinctions. It is the unity behind duality, the silence behind speech, the stillness before movement. To return to this state is not to lose oneself, but to come into direct contact with the source of all possibilities. It is described as peace, fullness, wholeness, or even bliss, not because it is filled with things, but because it contains the power to become anything. The differentiation of elements refers to the process by which the primal, unified state of existence, often described as undifferentiated potential, begins to take form and give rise to the fundamental constituents of the universe. In nearly every cosmological tradition, this transition marks the movement from unity to multiplicity, from the formless to the formed, from silence to vibration, and from potential to expression. It is through differentiation that the basic elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sometimes ether or space, come into being, each embodying a distinct principle or quality that contributes to the structure and functioning of reality. In many ancient systems, such as in Indian, Greek, and Egyptian cosmologies, the first act of creation is the separation or articulation of these elements from the formless source. This is often symbolized by an initial vibration, breath, sound, or divine word that disturbs the stillness of the void. The resulting motion causes a subtle sorting or unfolding, allowing qualities such as heaviness, heat, moisture, or motion to become distinct forces. These qualities are then attributed to the emerging elements. Earth becomes associated with stability and form, water with fluidity and adaptability, fire with transformation and energy, air with movement and intellect, and ether or space with containment and connectivity. This process of differentiation is not only physical but metaphysical as well. Each element represents both a material substance and a deeper principle. For example, fire is not just literal flame, but also the symbolic source of illumination, purification, and will. Water can signify not only rivers and seas, but also emotion, intuition, and flow. These symbolic dimensions reveal the inner workings of existence as something more than just matter. It is a fusion of energy, intelligence, and expression shaped by elemental interplay. The order in which the elements are said to emerge varies depending on the tradition. In some systems, space or ether is first, being the necessary field within which differentiation can even occur. From there, air arises, then fire, followed by water, and finally earth. This progression moves from the most subtle to the most dense, mirroring the process by which invisible forces condense into visible forms. Other systems describe a reversal of this order during dissolution, where the solid returns to the liquid to the fiery, and the fiery to the airy, and so on, until everything is absorbed back into the undivided whole. Differentiation also plays a crucial role in the human experience. The body is said to be made of the same elemental substance as the cosmos, and so the cosmos reflects the microcosm. Each aspect of the human being, physical form, emotional flow, energetic vitality, breath, and consciousness, can be seen as governed by these elemental forces. Balancing among them is considered essential for health and harmony, while imbalance or excess leads to disruption, illness, or disorder. In this view, the study of the elements is not only about understanding the world outside, but also about understanding the internal landscape of the self. Philosophically, differentiation introduces the condition of duality and contrast. With the emergence of opposites, hot and cold, wet and dry, active and passive, the universe becomes a theater of dynamic tension and resolution. It is this contrast that allows for motion, growth, and interaction. Without differentiation, there could be no direct, no, there could be no direction, no creation, and no experience. If this movement away from unity is never final, embedded within the process of differentiation is the ongoing pull towards reintegration, balance, and harmony. Creation is thus not a linear act but a rhythmic cycle of expansion and contraction, of distinction and return. In modern terms, differentiation can also be interpreted through the lens of physics and cosmology. In the earliest moments of the universe, all forces and particles are believed to have been unified. As the cosmos expanded and cooled, distinct forces such as gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear forces separated out, each with its own role and behavior. Similarly, matter began to take on different forms, governed by laws that can still be traced back to an initial singularity. While the language differs from ancient philosophy, the concept remains parallel. From the one comes the many. The concept of original unity refers to a primordial state in which all things existed in a single, undivided, and harmonious whole before the emergence of differentiation, multiplicity, and form. The state is often described across various philosophical, metaphysical, and cosmological traditions as formless, timeless, and beyond the constraints of spatial and temporal boundaries. It is a condition where no separation existed, neither between self and other, light and dark, being and non-being, nor between the spiritual and the material. It was pure potential, often likened to an infinite void or an all-encompassing oneness from which all manifestations later arose. In many ancient cosmologies, this original unity was not simply an absence of things, but rather the presence of all things, held in perfect equilibrium. It was the unmanifest totality, sometimes personified or symbolized as an eternal ocean, a cosmic womb, or a divine silence. Within this unity, there were no distinctions, no opposites, no motion or tension. It was peace in this most complete and absolute sense, often considered the source of all being and the ultimate destination to which all things return after the cycle of creation and dissolution. In the Indian philosophical system, this This original unity is described as Brahman, an unchanging, infinite reality that underlies all appearances. Brahman is not a being, but being itself, pure consciousness that becomes the universe through the illusion of separation. In Greek thought, this idea appears as the primordial chaos, not chaos in the modern sense of disorder, but as a vast, undivided chasm from which form emerges. In Egyptian cosmology, the Nun was the primeval waters, containing all things its suspended potential. These mythical and metaphysical representations share a recognition of an original connection where nothing was distinct and yet everything was present in essence. The movement from original unity into differentiation is often viewed as the first act of creation or manifestation. This moment marks the beginning of time, polarity, identity in the material world. It is commonly represented in symbolic narratives as the separation of sky and earth, light and darkness, or male and female principles. These first distinctions allow for structure, change, and experience, but also introduces limitation, struggle, and the illusion of separateness. Despite the necessity of this division for existence to unfold, many traditions emphasize that the underlying unity remains ever present. Though veiled by the forms and patterns of the manifest world, this primal unity can still be accessed through contemplation, spiritual practice, or inner realization. The journey of the soul, in this sense, is not only outward through time and experience, but also inward towards remembrance and returning to the original, unfragmented whole. Philosophically, original unity is associated with the absence, the unconditioned, and the eternal. It transcends dualities such as good and evil, being and non-being, matter and spirit. It is prior to all categories and definitions, including the language we use to describe it. Because of this, many traditions resort to metaphor, paradox, or silence when attempting to articulate its nature. In some cases, it is described as light, in others as darkness. Some portray it as the fullness of everything, others as the emptiness from which all arises. Yet all agree that it is the ground of reality, the source from which all things emerge, and to which they all return. In the human psyche, the original unity is mirrored in early consciousness before the development of ego. Identity and the sense of separation. It also appears in altered states, deep meditation, and mystical experiences, where individuals report a profound sense of oneness with all existence, the dissolving of boundaries, and the reunion with something vast, peaceful, and eternal. These glimpses are often described as awakenings or revelations, suggesting that this unity is not lost but only hidden beneath the layers of experience and form. From a cosmic perspective, movement from unity to multiplicity and back again is seen as a recurring cycle, a great breath of the universe. Creation is the outward breath, a spreading into variety and differentiation. Dissolution is the inward breath, the reabsorption of all things into the undivided whole. Between these two poles lies the dance of existence, where every being playing its role in the unfolding of no, where every being playing its role in the unfolding of the great cosmic rhythm. The idea of spiritual emanations representing stages in the unfolding of reality is a profound metaphorical concept found in many ancient philosophical, mystical, and religious traditions. At its core, it suggests that the manifest universe, with all its layers of complexity, diversity, and form, originates from a singular, undivided spiritual source. This source is often described as eternal, formless, infinite, and perfect, a fundamental unity beyond space, time, and duality. Rather than creating the world all at once through external forces, this source expresses itself gradually through a series of emanations. Each emanation represents a stage or level in the descent from pure spirit into the structured material world. These are not steps of physical creation, but a metaphysical unfolding, where each successive stage becomes more distinct, defined, and complex, while still maintaining a connection to its origin. This notion can be seen in Neoplatonic philosophy, where the One is the highest reality, utterly simple and unified. From the One emanates the Nous, or divine mind, which contains the perfect forms and intelligible archetypes of all things. From the divine mind emanates the world soul, which gives rise to individual souls in the pattern of life in the cosmos. Each stage in this emanation is not a departure from the One, but a dimming or filtering of its radiance. The farther one moves from the original source, the more limited and diverse the emanations become, culminating into the physical world, which reflects the unity of the divine in scattered, fractured forms. In certain mystical traditions, especially within the Kabbalistic teachings of Hebrew mysticism, the concept of emanation is illustrated through the 10 Sephirot. These are 10 distinct attributes or vessels through which the infinite divine essence becomes knowable and active within creation. Beginning with the crown, which represents pure potential or divine will, the emanations proceed through wisdom, understanding, mercy, judgment, beauty, endurance, splendor, foundation, and finally kingdom, which corresponds to the tangible world. Each Sephirah represents not only a spiritual power but also a stage in the descent of divine energy into form. The process is not linear but recursive, with higher levels always present within the lower, like light refracted through increasingly dense layers of glass. Similarly, the Hindu metaphysics and concepts of emanation is embedded in the doctrine of the tattvas, or principles of reality. The absolute, or Brahman, manifests itself through successive layers of consciousness and materiality, beginning with the most subtle and formless aspects and moving gradually into the differentiated world. The Supreme Being, often referred to as the unmanifested or transcendent reality, emanates through stages such as pure intelligence, cosmic order, elemental forces, the mind, and finally the physical sense of matter. This sequence marks a gradual crystallization of divine essence in perceptible existence. These spiritual emanations are often simply metaphysical descriptions of how the universe came to be. They also reflect the soul's journey both outward into multiplicity and inward towards reunion with the Source. Each emanated stage can be seen as a reflection of a state of consciousness. At the higher levels, consciousness is unified, expansive, and rooted in the divine. As it descends through the stages, it becomes more involved in the illusions of separation, time, ego, and form. The goal of spiritual practices in this view is to retrace this path, not to reject the world, but to understand it as a veil through which the divine shines, and to ascend back through the emanations towards the original source of being. The model of unfolding also provides a fragment for understanding the hierarchies of existence. Angels, archetypes, divine intelligence, cosmic principles, and natural laws all have their place within the chain of emanation. They serve as intermediaries between the infinite and the finite, each channeling a particular quality of the divine essence into the world. These intermediaries do not block access to the divine, but make it possible for the infinite to be experienced in degrees appropriate to each level of consciousness. Spiritual emanations also help explain the presence of order, harmony, and intelligence in the universe. Since the emanations are derived from the original unity, they retain its nature, even in diminished or fragmented form. Therefore, the structures of the cosmos, mathematical patterns, biological systems, moral laws, and spiritual intuition are all reflections of the divine source refracting through successive layers of emanation. This idea counters the notion that the world is purely accidental or material. Instead, it suggests that everything in existence is fused with meaning, purpose, and connection to something greater. In this way, spiritual emanation is not merely a story of creation, but also a living model of how existence continues to unfold. It provides a language for understanding transformation both cosmically and personally. Just as the world unfolds from spirit into matter, so too can the human soul unfold from confusion into clarity, from limitation into expansion, and from isolation into unity. Each stage, each emanation is both a descent into form and a potential pathway back to the source. Now, that is going to be my last reading on the conscious beginning for this year. I will be back next year, hopefully, with more on this and maybe even going farther into it. I'm not going to lie to you guys, man. This has been probably the hardest research that I've had to do. Things got a little confusing for me there for a little bit when it came to putting all of this down. Um, when I first started getting into this, I thought I had a pretty good hold on the concept of what all this was about, but that fell apart quickly when I did two things. First, I went to go and write it down. Not only did I want to write it down, I wanted to write it down in my own words without using any of my notes or anything. And I tried my best to do it, but I'll have to be honest with you there. I wasn't able to get through all of this writing it down in my own words. I had to go and I had to um, put the information down that I already had on there so that I could read it out. And that was hard, but also like whenever I'm sitting down here after it's all written out and I'm reading it to you, it's still kind of hard to get a grasp of. It's still kind of hard to have sink into your head. So this is very, very complex. What I do comprehend of it, though, makes a lot of sense. It actually it's pretty solid, to be honest with you, especially when it comes to things that aren't specifically 100% scientific. But even when it comes to science, it really does hold a lot of interesting concepts that have been a part of science too. So I find that very, very interesting. So I will be back later. I'm going to be doing the science aspect of all this, and after that, I'm going to take a break with the cosmic weave until next year sometime. Hopefully, if things, yeah, I don't know. Um, I I really got frustrated with this, to be honest with you. So I am going to come back with another episode, and hopefully I do come in with another season next year. If you liked what you heard so far, please like, subscribe, share, make comments, and let me know what you think. Leave comments so that um, I can actually respond to you and have a conversation on it. Get your take on it, your feedback. So, with that being said, I am going to go ahead and end the stream, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day.